It's June of 1977. 19-year-old Terri Jentz and her best friend and college roommate, 20-year-old Avra Goldman, board a Greyhound bus headed to Western Oregon. The pair were both Yale University students and had just completed their sophomore year of studies. One evening, as they were studying in the library, they overheard a group of students sharing their experience of biking the Trans-America Bike Trail the previous summer. The 4,200-mile journey from Astoria, Oregon to Yorktown, Virginia, comprised of a challenging transcontinental route spanning the entire country, capturing the hearts of the two young women. This would be an unparalleled adventure, a unique opportunity for the duo to uncover the concealed treasures of America while traversing its diverse landscapes. It would also serve as a voyage of self-discovery, with each of the young women delving deeper into their own strength and endurance capabilities. After a year of stress and deadlines at one of America's most prestigious universities, this was the chance they had been waiting for. As Terri would later say, "I really had no clue what America was all about. But what I do remember is what you hear in those rock songs of those times. You know, like the Eagles or Fleetwood Mac. Go your own way." It was a sense that anything was possible and that you could just go out and make it happen. The pair stepped off the bus in Astoria, Oregon on June 18, 1977, and embarked on what they thought would be an adventure of a lifetime. After completing their fourth day of the Trans-America Bike Trail, the girls rode their bikes down into Cline Falls State Park. Located just 4 miles west of Redmond, Oregon, the Steinacre Park sits right alongside the Deschutes River and is a popular hangout spot for locals. The pair chose a quiet spot and began to pitch their tent. However, an uneasy feeling came up over both of them, feeling as if they were being watched. Avra was the first to bring this up, and she wanted to immediately leave and continue biking to the next rest area. Terri, although overcome with the same feeling, argued to stay, due to the fact it was very late in the day and the next rest area would require another 6 miles of biking. Ultimately, they chose to stay, and as the evening came to a close, both girls would drift off into sleep, getting some well-needed rest for the days to come. Around 11:30 that night, the girls were suddenly woken up by the sound of an approaching vehicle. The vehicle pulled up next to their campsite and came to a stop. Terri thought it might be some local kids having a late-night party and expected them to leave soon. But things took a terrifying turn as the vehicle quickly surged forward and crashed right into their tent. Their tent was instantly flattened, trapping both girls under the vehicle, with Terri pinned beneath its rear tires. The heavy weight of the vehicle made it hard for Terri to breathe, and she felt the intense pain of several broken bones. A man got out of the driver's side and approached Avra, who yelled, "Leave us alone." Terri, stuck underneath the back of the truck, listened in fear as the man attacked Avra with an axe, hitting her 6 to 7 times. Avra's cry stopped and turned into an eerie silence. The man now turned his attention towards Terri. The man pulled the truck forward, just enough so that Terri was free from under it. Just as she began to feel the relief of not being trapped under the vehicle, the man stood over her and started attacking her the same way he did to Avra. The man struck her several times as Terri laid there helplessly. Then he got in his truck and he pulled back onto the road. Terri laid there, staring into the dark sky, hoping the ordeal was over, when suddenly a figure appeared above her. It was the Axeman, her attacker, coming back to finish what he had started. He placed the tip of the axe head on her chest, as if to measure out his final blows. Terri pulled together the last of her strength and grabbed the axe head, refusing to let him raise it up. She stared up into the dark figure above her, later describing him to be a tall, muscular, handsome cowboy. She stared up at the man and begged him to please not do this. They both sat there for what felt like an eternity, when suddenly, he gently pulled his axe out of Terri's grasp and quietly walked off, returning to his truck and leaving the park for good. Terri laid there in a now quiet park, realizing the attack was finally over. Just then, she remembered Avra. Was she still alive? Where was she? Despite being mortally wounded, with a newfound resolve, she sprung into action, determined to find and save her friend. Terri stood up and hurried to Avra's side, discovering her lying still by the water's edge. As she drew near, confusion gripped Terri, even though she had just witnessed a brutal attack. Avra didn't show any visible wounds. She knelt down beside her friend and began checking her for injuries. While running her hand over the back of Avra's head, she unexpectedly felt something sharp and uneven. Avra had been struck in the head multiple times, resulting in a jagged hole straight into her skull. Their absolute nightmare of the situation became more grim, as Avra's chance of survival hung in the balance. Terri ran to her bike, with the plan of searching for help, but as she attempted to unlock the bike lock, her arms refused to function. The injury she had sustained during the attack crippled her body's motor functions. Just as all hope seemed lost, a pair of headlights appeared. As Terri looked closer, she could see a truck driving down the main road into the park. Could this be the attacker, returning to finish what he had started? Terri wondered. But with Avra on the brink of death, she had no choice but to try to flag it down. The truck coming down the road was driven by two local high school kids, named Bill and Darlene. The pair were dating, but had gotten into a nasty fight earlier that day. Bad enough that Darlene had had enough of Bill and ended the entire relationship. Bill later on called Darlene and had begged for another chance to work things out, and the pair eventually agreed to take a late-night ride down to Cline Falls State Park and sit together and discuss the relationship. However, as the pair pulled into the park, they were greeted by the horrifying sight of a bloodied and injured woman running from the shadows straight towards their truck. Bill was terrified and wanted to speed away as fast as he could. Darlene knew something was wrong and screamed at Bill to stop. He locked up the brakes and skidded to a halt, just as a bloodied and bruised Terri Jentz arrived at their window, frantically explaining the horrifying attack that had just occurred. The trio launched into action, running to Avra's side and carrying her to the vehicle. Bill drove, while Darlene cradled Avra on her lap on the passenger side. Terri jumped in the bed of the truck alongside their camping gear. As the truck now cruised down the highway towards the nearest hospital, Terri's mind could only think about one thing. Would Avra, her best friend, make it through the night? A few days later, the girls found themselves at St. Charles Hospital, located in nearby Bend, Oregon. Avra had managed to survive the night and was on the path to recovery, although not without some enduring side effects. She was suffering from amnesia, with no recollection from the time she had fallen asleep in the tent until waking up in the hospital. Additionally, she was grappling with temporary blindness, although her vision would gradually improve over the following months. She survived the massive head wound, primarily due to a piece of her own skull breaking off and blocking an artery, preventing fatal bleeding. Terri, unfortunately, had a more challenging road ahead. She had sustained multiple broken bones in both arms and legs, fractured ribs, a collarbone injury, and a collapsed lung caused by being struck by the truck. Additionally, she had deep gashes on her arm from the secondary axe attack. Despite their extensive injuries, both girls displayed remarkable resilience, and they made swift recoveries. Within 2 weeks, They were discharged from the hospital and reunited with their parents for continued care. Avra's vision improved significantly over the following year, though some lingering dark spots remained for the rest of her life. Remarkably, this never deterred her, and she accepted her newfound disability with grace. Avra pursued her education, eventually graduating from Yale and later becoming a doctor. Her disability served as the source of her strength, motivating her to provide exceptional care for her patients. She went on to build a family, marrying and raising 3 kids. Terri, on the other hand, found it difficult to move forward. Avra refused to hear the details of that fateful night, choosing to live in blissful ignorance of the event that had forever changed their lives. This left Terri without the closure she desperately needed, straining their friendship and ultimately leading to its end. 15 years later, in her mid-30s, Terri finally found the closure she had been seeking. She made the courageous decision to confront the demons she had long buried and revisited the case that had been haunting her. Over the course of several years, she made multiple trips to Redmond, collecting the case files and reconnecting with the people involved in the incident, even including Bill and Darlene. As Terri delved into the case files, she had discovered a startling revelation. Despite having several suspects, the police haven't devoted a significant efforts to the case and lost nearly all the evidence over the last 15 years. In 2006, Terri would publish A Strange Piece of Paradise, a book deep diving into the attack and her journey exploring the case 15 years later. The case had grown cold over the years and was likely to never be reinvestigated due to the statute of limitations having expired. Fortunately, no similar attacks occurred at Cline Falls before or since that fateful night in 1977.